Self-care is such a popular topic right now, but it's so hard to figure out what it is that you need and how to engage in self-care. Oftentimes, we feel really guilty about engaging in self-care because of society's expectations, other people's expectations, and the pressures we just put on ourselves. Self-care is really about us taking responsibility for ourselves. Honestly, self-care is up to you. Hi, I'm Danica. I'm so glad that you're interested in self-care. I think it's such an important topic, and I'm so excited to be able to share this live replay with you. I created coloring activity pages to teach self-care methods and to bring awareness to your needs in order to figure out how to meet them. So these coloring pages are available for download to you as well. They're available at my Etsy store, which is down below in the link. Kids also need to learn how to engage in self-care. And so if you have children around you, I invite you to look up, to also find the links for the kids version of the self-care activity pages. So I hope you enjoy the live replay. Can't wait to see what you come up with in the coloring. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to the webinar. Today we're talking about self-care is not selfish. I think this is such an important topic, especially as we're approaching Valentine's Day. A lot of feelings are probably surfacing. And so this isn't the answer to all of our problems for sure, self-care, but it can really help us manage when we're not feeling so great. So even if you are feeling great, you also can still engage in self-care. So it's a topic for everybody. So go ahead and get comfy and grab a pen and notepad if you want to take notes. So here I'll go ahead and show my face. Nice to meet you. I wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Danica. If I haven't met you yet, my role is, I do Project Grief. I founded it with my husband. I'm passionate about helping grievers find creative ways to express their emotions. I'm a therapeutic life coach. Not a therapist, so there is a difference, and I need to let you know that. I'm also an artist, so this is my studio where I'm sitting at right now. So I'm so glad to meet you. I just wanted to share just a tiny bit of my self-care journey with you before we get started. I think I never really was good at self-care. It's definitely a learned thing for me. With the family I grew up in, I was the oldest child, and so part of what my family was about was we have to take care of each other. And so as the oldest child, I quickly learned, that was my role, is to take care for others. I was definitely, hello, Randy, nice to meet you. So as the oldest child, I definitely felt that obligation. I think me being a natural people pleaser, I also fell into that. I was part of a great church growing up, but I also felt like that church culture expected me to pour into others and not, and that self-care was selfish. So early on, I kind of learned this. No one told me so. I just kind of picked it up from my culture. I hope somebody out there can agree with that as well. My dad died when I was 12 years old, and so being the oldest, I was supposed to help and take care of the family. And so quickly, as my teenage years progressed, because I wasn't versed in self-care, I ended up burning out quite a few times, but very dramatically in college. I experienced a mental breakdown. And so through that time, I guess I learned the importance of self-care. I didn't necessarily learn to self-care yet, but it was a lot of trial and error going through that. I entered into ministry after I graduated from college, and so that is definitely an arena where you're caring for others, constantly pouring out. And I fell quite a few times into burnout as well. So some things I learned along the way was taking a Sabbath, is what it's called. So every Sunday, just doing nothing, like scheduling nothing. It's been so refreshing. So I started that as a college student. Early on, I learned healthy eating and exercising was a huge role. I learned that sunshine walks were a big thing for me. And right now, what I'm going through is, as an artist, a working artist, I have a creative job, which is awesome. But that means when I have free time to myself, or when I schedule my free time, being creative is a little bit hard because I've done that all week as my job. So instead, what I'm learning to do right now, so this is in the process, is I'm learning to play. So getting out paints or whatever medium I want to play with and just doing something just for the purpose of play instead of making something to put forward in the business. So that's a little bit of my journey. I hope that I find you guys wherever you're at in a place of like openness and just excitedness to learn more about self-care. So we'll go ahead and get to our PowerPoint. I have 3 free self-care coloring pages that I want to give to you guys. Oh, I should have showed you that when I showed my face. Nope, I forgot. These are awesome resources to practice self-care. And we're going to use these to talk about self-care as well during the next 30 or so minutes. So these are things that you can just print out, download and print out for yourself. I also have 3 equal pages, so they're parallel for kids as well. So if there's kids in your life, you can also download those and do some self-care together. So just let's start with some reflection time. I just want to know, what do you hope to gain from this webinar? So you can type in the chat the number that reflects what you're feeling. So 1, learn about what self-care is. 2, I want my need validated for self-care. 3, I need permission to be selfish. That's a really big thing. 4, you're looking for some tips. Or 5, you're just here for the coloring pages. No shame. So go ahead and type in the chat. So as those come in, we'll go ahead and start talking about self-care. What is it? Oh my goodness. So I ended up finding a whole bunch of memes to help make this more fun. I don't know if any of you feel like this cat. Self-care, I literally have no idea what you're talking about. Because honestly, I think we have a concept of self-care in our heads, but when we say, I don't know what you're talking about, we mean like, I don't get self-care. That's not for me. I don't get permission to take that. So let's see where everyone's at. Okay. So Sarah is at the 4. Sheila is at 2, 3, 4. Way to go, Sheila. Doing more numbers. Awesome. Yeah. So as you go on, you can go ahead and keep typing in the chat your number that you're going towards. So self-care has quite a few different definitions depending on who you're talking to, what article you're reading. It's also called self-compassion, self-management, self-regulation, self-monitoring, self-help. So this kind of alternate words help us define a little bit of what it is. So we're regulating emotions by paying attention to what's going on inside. So there's that quote from that researcher down below. Self-care has been defined as providing adequate attention to one's own physical and psychological wellness. So it's paying attention. So on a scale of 1 to 10, you can type in the chat again. Awesome. Ooh, very good. Oh yeah, I went through it so fast. I'm so sorry, Dana. We'll get back to it. There's a reflection at the end as well. So for this one, I'll stay on it for a sec. What do you think? How important is self-care? So on a scale of 1 to 10. So 10 is like vitally important. So I think most of us are on the like, 8 to 10, you know, self-care is important and we feel this. Yeah, good job, Brandy. Yeah, also 10. We feel that self-care is important. We know this, but the thing is that it doesn't line up with what we do, how we're living our lives. We know it's important, but it's not reflected in how we're caring for ourselves. So it hasn't translated into practical stuff yet. So just a little bit about the importance of self-care. If you see on the left, there's a quote. This is talking about medical self-care. So regulating your own self in terms of like weight, diabetes. There's so many things that are about self-care in terms of medical. And it says the beneficial effects of self-care include improved well-being and lower morbidity, mortality, and healthcare costs. That's like high stakes. You can actually prolong your life through self-care. I love these 2 other pictures here. This picture of the plant. Honestly, I think that's the importance of self-care right in a picture. You know, that you're constantly watering yourself because you're a living, thriving being. And finally, on the right, you can't pour from an empty cup. So you got to take care of yourself first. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a sec.
So, first, why are we so self conscious about self care? Honestly, I think there's so many expectations on us, especially as women. I think all of us are women here. Um, yeah, society has a lot of expectations in terms of what it looks like to be a success, in terms of what it looks like to have a career, to pour into your family, to have kids, get married, to take care of others. And then there's expectations that come from those others. I need you to be there for me. I need you to be there for this. Children, obviously, they are so needy. And so I think it's really hard, especially for moms or other caretakers, to really care for yourself because of the expectations of others and true needs of others as well. I think there's also a huge part of it is the expectations we have for ourselves. No one's consciously told us, no, you don't have time for self-care. Like you need to do these other things, but we feel it. Just like I was sharing in my story, we put expectations on ourselves that keep us from truly caring for ourselves. Then there's also the role of distractions. So if you see this meme over here, Minecraft is the one that's keeping the little boy from self-care. But substitute Minecraft for whatever it is. Maybe it's Netflix, like there's a way to watch Netflix in a self-care way, and then there's a way that distracts you from actually doing something that benefits yourself. So I'm not dissing on Netflix at all, but you know the difference when you're actually caring for yourself and when you're getting distracted. So the reality is, though, that there are two different types of self-care. There is selfish self-care and there is wise, healthy self-care. And we'll talk about that one in a sec. But selfish self-care looks like overindulgence. So it's not, oh, treat yourself to a piece of chocolate. It's like eat the whole box of cookies. It might look like destructive behavior. So in terms of, justifying maybe a drinking habit or some other thing that's destructive because, oh, I deserve it. But really, that it's a destructive behavior. And sometimes selfish behavior can look at like neglecting priorities or relationships that are real, like taking care of children. It's such a real thing. And especially in those early times of life as well. But there is also wise and healthy self-care in contrast to selfish self-care. If the mom never takes time for herself, she's going to be burnt out before the kid is in first grade, So there's wise and healthy ways to do it. And so let's begin today by giving yourself permission to be where you're at. Because where you're at is where it's okay, that's where you're at and that's where you're moving forward. And so here's two fun memes I found, and I thought they were so profound. It says, self-care is not self-indulgence. Self-care is self-respect. Because we know there's a difference. On the right, it says, mommy needs wine. No, mommy does not need wine. Mommy needs sleep, self-care, a group of sister friends who have her back, cheer her on, and remind her to breathe when it all feels too hard. That's healthy self-care. And so I want you guys to know that self-care techniques are as unique as you. So there's no one way that I'm going to say, oh, this is how you have to care for yourself, because we're all uniquely made and we all need unique things to fill us. And so I'm not actually going to tell you this is what you need today, but I'll give you some suggestions, some ideas to help you bring that out and discover for yourself what you need. So art is a great tool for self-care. Again, it's not a one-size-fits-all process, but I think it really helps a lot of people because art is not about the product as in fine art. We can use art in terms of its process. Like I was explaining earlier, that art helps me play. There's an art that I produce that I sell, that I work with on my business, but there's also a different art that I use just for its process, what it gives to me. Coloring is what we're talking about today, and it really does bring us to a childlike state. When we weren't, self-conscious about our self-care, we just played because we felt like it. And so coloring can help bring us back. So let's begin a little bit more. I keep saying let's begin, but I mean, let's continue. I think this is so important. And if this is the only reason why you needed to be at this webinar, then so be it. Because self-care assumes your individual worth and value. And so you are worthy. I want you to hear that. You are worthy of care. You are worthy of time for yourself. You are worthy. You are worthy. You are worthy. Please tell yourself right now. I
I just see so many women neglecting themselves because they don't feel worthy. And that's just the saddest thing to me. And I've been there. I understand that. But what we're doing is changing our mindset. We are assuming our individual worth and value by coming to this, by spending time in self-care. Each time we spend time in self-care, we're combating those lies that we are not worthy. So hear this, you are worthy. So this is the first coloring page that I'll be sending you guys. This is, it's called What I Love About Me. So the instructions for it are to color the heart any way you want it, all the hearts, and then use the heart shapes, around the hands to write things that you love about yourself. So I have some ideas below if you're like, oh, that's so tiny. It'll be bigger, don't worry, when you get the download. But I just want to do this, please do this one of the three, please do this one. And if you're struggling with it, it might be helpful to do this one last. So oftentimes we feel like we're bragging about ourselves if we say, oh, this is what I love about myself. No, this is for you. You're not showing it to anyone. You're not proving your worth in front of everyone. This is not a brag in that way. You're doing this to prove your worth to yourself. So self-care invites you to become aware of your heart, how it's uniquely made, and what it needs to thrive. So it's an invitation to open your eyes to yourself, to how unique you are. This is the second coloring page here. This is a declaration, you're making. You're holding your heart out and saying, this is my heart. I'm curious what colors you'll color your heart, what maybe what things you'll add to it. Like I colored this once, and I made flowers popping out of the little veins there. And another woman I watched color this, she was making little stitches on the side saying she was broken but now mended. There's so many possibilities. And so tell me about your heart, what are people you love and activities you love, things you love? You're inviting yourself to become acquainted with your own heart. Self-care empowers you to take responsibility for yourself. So the thing that we're talking about is self-care. That assumes that you have the power to make a change to care for yourself. You're not asking the world to fulfill you. You're not asking another to fulfill you. You're taking the responsibility on yourself for your own well-being. And so in order to do that, we have to become aware of our needs and how we can meet them. So this is the third coloring page. It's called When My Heart Says I Feel Loved. So I feel loved when. So there's a whole bunch of suggestions all around the heart. So there's, I can share my feelings. Someone helps me do something I can't do for myself. Oh, this is actually the kid version. Hey, there you go. So my friend and I can do an activity together without having to talk. Someone gives me a hug. Oh man, there's so many ways, but unless we recognize what our heart needs, we're not going to be able to ask for it or go seek it for ourselves. So taking responsibility for yourself begins with an awareness of your needs. Then it's asking for what you need. And sometimes you're in a place where you're not able to ask for what you need for whatever reason. It might be the relationships around you aren't safe. Might be that the relationships around you are 3-year-old children who can't meet your needs. Or maybe it's just a lonely season where you're looking for new friends. And so in that case, that means that responsibility falls on you to find ways to meet your own need. But all three of those are ways to take responsibility for yourself. Even asking for what you need is a way to take that responsibility because you have the power. So quite a few of you are actually referred here from Project Grief. So I work specifically with grievers to help them learn art as a tool for grief recovery. And I think self-care is so important when you're grieving. So if you're not here and you're as a grieving person, that's okay, but you probably know someone who is. So just bear with me for 1 second as I go through this. So when you're grieving, oftentimes that means that you're a caretaker or you were a caretaker when that person was alive. And you need that extra care too. So you've probably spent a whole season of pouring out. And so this is a time when you need to really focus and pour into yourself. When you're grieving, your heart, mind, and body require extra care. They just do. They're fragile right now. And so you have to treat them with special, special care. And self-care when you're grieving means that externally, when you care for yourself, when you give yourself a nice bubble bath, buy a new fuzzy robe, drink tea while you're watching the snow outside. Whatever external care that is, it helps to soothe the internal chaos that you're feeling when you're grieving. So one resource for support that I want to talk about is Project Grief, the course that I teach. So the way that self-care works for that is that we use art to get it out. And then once it's out, we reflect on that grief, that thing we just got out. And from there, you can begin to ask questions of that grief. You know, what is true? What is not true? What is outside of my ability to change? What is within my power to change? Those are so helpful questions. But until you get that chaos outside of you, you're not able to reflect on it and ask those questions of yourself. And from there, once you get it out, you're able to actually transform that grief into something beautiful, to change your mindset and ultimately heal. So Project Grief is an online art course, and several art courses, actually, more to come. They're affordable and approachable, and they allow you to process your loss on your own time. They help you make art, think aloud, cry it out, whatever it takes, and you do it from the comfort of your home. And so I offer virtual support from fellow students around the world who are processing their grief like you, and I walk alongside you as well. So each art project we do is designed to help you take the next step in processing your grief. And I want to assure you too, because anyone, I mean, grievers, non-grievers as well, anyone can use art as a tool in their own self-care or grief journey. That's because fine art is all about the product, as I was saying before, but grief art is all about the process. So anyone can learn how to use it. And one way to take responsibility for yourself, like I was saying, is to invest in yourself. And I'm not just talking about time, about money. I'm talking about time and effort and energy, investing in yourself and your emotional and mental well-being. You know, we're so much more likely to go out and treat ourselves to a new pair of shoes or a coffee or, you know, whatever other thing, instead of going, you know, to that counselor's office or buying the self-help book or, you know, enrolling in that course to help you with your mental and emotional health. So one way to take responsibility is to actually put time, effort, money towards that. So let's review. So taking responsibility for yourself looks like beginning an awareness of your own needs, and then asking for what you need, and then finding ways to meet that need. So let's talk some practical steps here. So this isn't concrete things that you can do, but we're hopefully planting some ideas in your mind. So if we look back to this image that we began with, it really does assume that people are like plants. But the thing is that we're not all the same plant. You know, when you get a plant from a store or whatever, it has that little place card. You take it out and look at it and, you know, it says, oh, this one needs sun, this one needs shade, this one needs half and half, you know, and it says how much water and, you know, when to water, all of those things. So ultimately in self-care, we're discovering what kind of plant am I? And then what does my plant need? So once you discover what your plant needs, that means you got to schedule time for self-care. If you just set that plant on the on the table and assume it's going to take care of itself, it's not. You have to make a routine of watering that plant when it needs to. Schedule time for self-care, like put it in your calendar. And then once you schedule that time, you can protect that time too. You can reframe your no. So a lot of you in that, when you signed up, you were asking questions about how do I say no? Honestly, it's really hard and it's never going to be easy, but it will be easier over time. And one way to make it easier is to reframe your no. So there's a book by Lisa TerKeurst. If you've ever heard of her, I can put that in the email following up. It's called The Best Yes. So she's saying instead of saying no in your mind, reframe it and say, no, I'm saying no in order to say a better yes elsewhere. Because when we say no somewhere, that allows more mental and emotional space to say yes to the things that we need to. And so ultimately, you're not saying no to the thing, you're really saying your best yes to the things that really matter. So another practical step is to find and invest in your garden tools. So if you are a plant, you do need some tools to help you cultivate your garden. You need a trowel and some good dirt and some fertilizer and a watering can. So what are the tools that you need for your self-care? Maybe it's some books, a course, accountability partner, maybe a friend. I don't know. You got to figure out what that is for yourself and invest in those garden tools so that they're ready to help as needed. And then you can also get outside help as needed. So I don't know about you, but I actually am not very good at plants. I have killed succulents right and left, and it's really embarrassing because those are cactuses. But what I'm doing is actually asking my friends for help. I'm like, okay, so I keep killing this. What am I doing wrong? My sister is an awesome gardener. I don't know how she got this gene, but she did. And so I'm asking, okay, so how do I grow a plant from a seed? Please walk me through the steps. So all this is doing for you, applied to your self-care, is saying, hey, I'm actually not naturally good at this. Can you help me think of some ways that I can overcome? Can you walk me through it? Can you text me to make sure I, went on a walk today? Just asking for the outside help. And sometimes that does mean seeking out a counselor or a mental health professional as well. All that is asking for a master gardener to come in to help evaluate and see what you need in order to help your garden to thrive. So when we take responsibility for ourselves, I want to promise you some results. When you do this, you will discover that you are more you than you've ever been. So when you are running on empty, you often discover that you're like living a half-life. When was the last time you laughed out of joy? When was the last time, that you had a good night's sleep or woke up like excited for the day? When you begin to consistently self-care, you become more you. And more you means you're more able to contribute the uniqueness that you bring into the world. And another result is that you actually become a more unselfish person. That's because of this picture on the left here. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you take care of yourself first, suddenly you're so much more full or so much more willing to pour into others to be better able to meet others' needs. So you wouldn't let that low battery happen to your phone, right? So let's not make that happen to ourselves either. I love how this says, and it's a quote that really makes me think because, I do have a lot of connections to other countries, and I wonder if it's true. I don't know. Self-care is a priority, not a luxury. You know, I I really do think it is a priority. Not everyone has that luxury. Not everyone has that priority stuck in their heads or in their hearts. But we in the Western world have this availability to be able to self-care. And so, but instead we find ourselves more busy and stressed out than ever. So let's change that by actually prioritizing self-care as a priority instead of a luxury. So Baby Yoda even is on the train too. Baby Yoda wants to remind you to take care of yourself and practice self-care today. If you don't believe me, believe Baby Yoda. So let's talk about what you have just gained in 30 minutes. So I'll keep this slide here for a second so you're actually able to do. So what have you gained? Have you learned a little more about what self-care is? Have you felt validated in your need for it? Have you engaged in giving yourself permission? Have you got some ideas on how to care for yourself? Or are you excited to get coloring? So go ahead and type in chat. Yes, care for yourself you must, says Sheila. Very good. Ooh, Dana, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Ooh, I'm so excited. Oh, and all from Randy. That's awesome. Yes. Wonderful. So you guys are now carriers of this awesome information. And I hope that, as me pouring into you tonight, you'll be able to pour into somebody else. Give them permission to care for themselves tomorrow. So some resources for support. I mentioned this earlier. Project Grief, the master course, is my ultimate me pouring out my heart into you. It was such a heart exercise when I made this course. And so I'm so excited to be able to offer it year after year. So some of you are already on it, but for those who aren't, I'd like to give a coupon for 1 month free to try it out, and it's valid for the next 24 hours. So look for an email from me, that's support@projectgrief.org. I'll send you an opportunity to say yes to the coupon. You can try that out, have fun with art to your heart's content. And if you're not ready yet for that kind of a resource, Grief Art 101 is a great one. It's a free mini course to really preview what it's like and what it's about. And then you can follow me on social media as well. I post a lot of self-care resources. And if you aren't a griever, way to go to show up to this webinar. I'm so glad that you did. And please pass this on to somebody you know who's grieving. There's such a lack of resources and information out there, and they really need your permission to care for themselves in that hard time. So I want to thank you so much for your valuable time. Oh my gosh, you just spent 30 minutes with me in self-care and learning about it. And that's no small thing to me. So thank you. Your time is so valuable. Check your email for the self-care coloring pages. I'll be sending that within probably the half an hour here. And print those out. Have some fun. I'm so excited to see what you make. Please do share if you can, email me back with the colored thing or post, whatever. I'd love to see what you come up with. So again, questions, comments, feedback, there's my email right there, and my social media tags as well. I'm just so glad that you guys got to be here today. And if you're looking at any of the research or whatever on the slides, there's some citations there. Let me know if you're interested in a particular link or a study, and I can send that over to you. Credit where credit's due. So if you have any feedback or questions for me, please do send that to support@projectgrief.org. I'd love to hear from you, and I'm so excited too. So thank you so much for being here today. I'm just really excited that you're really giving yourself permission to care for yourself, and you are worthy. Just remember that. So thank you. Have a great night. Bye. If you're watching the replay, you can also get the coloring pages as well. They're at my Etsy shop, which is available at the links below, and they're available in both the adults and the kids version. Comment below if you can, and tell me what you learned as well.